Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where here we are. That's Eve. Right out there. Fantastic. We are currently in space high. Let's grab a temperature scan and we'll go ahead and transmit that. There we go. How's our power doing? Not the greatest. That's okay. And yeah, we got some surface deployed data coming back as we time warped. This is our first flyby of Eve. We've escaped the gravitational influence of the sun, and we've gathered the first scientific data from Eve. So that's great. And we'll go ahead and, transmitting this won't get us anything new. So we'll grab our magnetometer report here. Excellent. And we'll go ahead and transmit that as well. Now, that's going to take a little while to transmit because of our electric charge. We will go ahead and warp forward a little bit. How long until our maneuver? 4 days. So I'm pretty sure that we're going to have the power flow for that, but in future, we should definitely upgrade these photovoltaic panels. We'll go ahead and bring this up to, say, 100x. Wonderful. And actually, this is dropping back down to 1x because we went into a different biome. Let's take this back up to 100x. There we go. And now we have finished our transmission. So that is perfect. Of course, we can't get any more magnetometer readings at this particular location, but we did get like 180 science from that. So that is wonderful. And so we will, of course, position in the retrograde position. That was a big ol' overshoot. Let's turn that wheel authority back up. There we go. Fantastic. And this is going to be about a 300 meter per second burn. We've got some attitude changes to make because, of course, this is our target orbit here. So we're going to have to hit that. And let's just go ahead and warp to this next maneuver. Now, I don't think we're going to get in space low here, but that's fine. Hello, Eve. Perfect. So we will go ahead and position for this. This is going to be a 36-second burn, so at T minus 18 seconds is when we want to start this burn. We'll go ahead and warp towards that. And we'll burn this now. Excellent. And of course, we're going to be in a pretty elliptical orbit here, but that's ultimately fine. Our primary goal right now is actually, I'm probably going to bring this down a bit lower now that I think about it. I want this to be a faster orbit because this is going to take like 17 days to reach the apoapsis. So let's bring this down. We've got plenty of delta V. It's not a concern. So we'll go ahead and do that. Go into the orbit of Gilly here. Hopefully we don't have a Gilly encounter. Looks like we're not going to. That's great. Yeah, I don't care about this maneuver. The maneuver is irrelevant to me. So we can see that we're about 4 degrees off of the ascending and descending node. That's fine. And I'm just going to keep shrinking this orbit down a bit more to about here. This'll do. And let's just go ahead and position our view. Okay. Going to be interesting. That is for sure. Yeah, we probably do want to do it at the ascending node here. And we're going to want to move this the other direction to be roughly here-ish. That's probably close enough. Why is it going that way? That's very awkward. I want to move it just ever so slightly this way. Okay, something along the lines of this. And maybe bring it down like this. Yeah, it'll have to be something along the lines of this. I don't know if that's close enough. We may have to adjust it again, but that's fine. We'll go ahead and lock to that maneuver node. Well, we can't lock to the node, but we'll position for it. About like that. And let's warp to that maneuver. Excellent. So this is a 6-second burn, and we will burn that, of course, at T minus 3 seconds. We'll go ahead and warp towards that, and we will burn this just a second here. A little more than a second, but in a couple. Now, in fact. Okay. How's that looking? Close enough. Ascending node is showing a 0. Okay, so that is perfect. At this periapsis here, in about 2 hours, we will go ahead and bring our apoapsis down, but I want to bring this out a little bit like this. Not quite that way, more like that. That'll do. That's 19.3 meters per second. We'll position for that, and we will warp to that maneuver. Excellent. This is a 1-second burn, so we're going to have to be pretty cautious on this burn. We'll go ahead and warp towards T minus 0 a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to start this burn about now. Once again, I'm being pretty cautious on this burn. Not throttling up too much at all. That was a little bit on the too much side. Let's just tweak that a bit. That will do. Very nice. At the apoapsis, we're going to do a similar sort of burn. This will be probably just pure retrograde, though. Yes, indeed. 26.2 meters per second there. So we will go ahead and warp to that maneuver. And we did get the world first orbit of Eve. Okay. Sure. This will, of course, be a retrograde burn. And it'll be a 2-second retrograde burn. So we will go ahead and warp towards T minus 1 second. Okay, here in a couple seconds. And we will burn this now. That's close enough. And now we have to hold attitude for 10 seconds before the contract completes. And there it is. We have successfully placed our satellite in synchronous orbit of Eve. Perfect. And this is, of course, a communications relay satellite here. So this will be a very, very useful satellite for us. Let's go ahead and hop back to the Space Center. And the question is, what do we want to do next? That didn't take particularly long, but of course, it wasn't a particularly complicated thing. Let's hop into mission control and see what's available here. A flag on Minmus, that is something that we will be doing, so we may as well grab it. But we're not going to do it immediately. Surface deployed seismic sensor science. Now, the moon is not tectonically active, so we'd have to actively drop things on the moon. And I think I'll avoid that one for now. So it looks like orbital station around the moon, it is. We have a lot of science right now, so let's think about what we might want for that. I think we pretty much have all the tech we need for it, realistically. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we do. We don't really need to get anything else. So that's all well and good. Let's hop into the VAB and begin work on that. Now, this needs to be a mining station, according to what we previously generated. So let's use a cupola module, and where is that? Here it is. Excellent. This is going to be our base module. Of course, I believe this has an airlock there, but it does not have any docking ports or anything like that, and that's completely fine. Now, I'm going to just have this be a very basic core module. We're going to have this be, not this, I don't think. Yeah, not this. We need like the Rockamax 32, or rather the Rockamax 64 is what we'd want here. So this is just going to be a like fuel storage. And then we'll need some form of ore storage, because I'm planning on doing some fuel refinery on this station. I would also like to have perhaps a hitchhiker storage container. And how many Kerbals does that hold? 4? Okay, that's fine. I'd like to have on here a mobile processing lab. There we go. And I feel like the mobile processing lab needs a source of data, doesn't it? I think it does. So let's put on a... Let's see, we need a payload bay. Let's put on a 2.5 meter service bay, like this. Excellent. And inside of that, I'm just going to put a few experiments. And we'll also put maybe some batteries in here too, just to be on the safe side. So like quad-coupled batteries up top, something like this. And then we could put in the KER up here. That's under science. No, we don't need that to be on symmetry. We can put that in up there. And then we can put in, say, a barometer. We can put in a surface scanning module. Can only be used while landed. Right. That's something that we need to add to our lander craft, but we're not going to be doing a lander craft just now. We could maybe put a space telescope on this thing. That is a thing we could do. We probably would want that to be in a fairing. We could send that up as a separate module, in theory. But I think we'll think about this for now. So, let's think about what else we want in here. A magnetometer might not be the worst idea. We can slot one in out here. And then a spectrovariometer isn't going to be of use. We can't actually use that unless we're in an atmosphere. Same with the seismic accelerometer. We're not going to be landed, so that's fine. We can put in a thermometer. We could put in a survey scanner. This is another one of those things that we might want to do as a separate module. Like, we could do a science module for these. For these larger parts, anyway. We can bring up, like, a Science Junior and things like that, if we need to. We can do a mystery goo unit here. That'll be fine. And then we can put in, say... We need anything else? This feels big. We can put more things in there later, though, with the construction system. So we'll have some storage space there. We'll have our mobile processing lab. Again, though, the mobile processing lab, we might want to send up as a dedicated science launch for our science module of this station. Or, actually, let me check. Do we need a research station over anything in particular? Let me see here. I'm pulling it up. We need a research station over Eve. I mean, I think we get different science from this mobile processing lab over the Sun and Eve and all these things. So I think we'll have this be like our core module. And it's a pretty big core module. There's no doubt about that. I do want to have some coupling options here. I would not mind going with just a regular Clampotron docking port. And I think we'll put a Clampotron docking port, like... How many of these do we actually want? I need to think about that. Like, a Clampotron back here, and I do want snapping on. A Clampotron back here is fine. And then we could have, like, another pair of them here. So it can expand out this way. As far as this goes... Maybe. Now, one thing I want to check here is... we do have reaction wheels on this. Okay, so that's fine. We might want to have a bigger reaction wheel on this, though. Like a large reaction wheel. Like that. That's something we could do. Just to be on the safe side. This does not need RCS, but modules that are going to dock with it should have RCS. And I think... we might have an ore refinement module be a separate module. So that's something that I am certainly thinking about. I think for now, this will do. And then we would need some sort of an engine on this. So, of course, we would go for an engine in here, and this would probably be like the... not the pug. This would probably be something along the lines of a poodle. And we wouldn't have symmetry on, and we would have it just snap into the center like that. Now, this needs to be lifted. Do we lift this with a full tank? Probably not. I did want a big tank here, but let's have this be maybe something along the lines of... I want to have this be over Moon. 1365 DV. Let's have it be maybe like here in terms of weight. Okay, so something along the lines of this. And again, we will send up a separate science module and an ore refinement module and maybe a habitation module. We are going to need some power generation on here, and I'm just going to put on a pair of Gigantors here. Actually, I'm thinking about this. Maybe the pair of Gigantors go on up here. This is where the Kerbals would come down. And this would open there. That would be blocking the window. This would probably have obstructed LOS once we had people docked here. That said, we could also bring up a power module. That is an option. So I think this will do for now, and if we have power issues, then we can bring up a power module. It will be absolutely fine. So we'll need a decoupler down here. This will need to be a, what, TD25, I believe? Like this? Yep. Okay, and then we're going to need a heavy lift stage here. So maybe something like a pair of Jumbo 64s. Like this, and we'll need a big ol' mainsail on this. Like that. Now, this is going to be some crappy... Actually, this would lift. This would actually lift. Fascinating. Do we want side... I want this to be a heavy lift vehicle. Do we want side tanks to be... I mean, in theory, this would just do the trick, wouldn't it? This would be maybe a little bit sketchy on getting into Kerbal or Kerbin orbit. It might work. I'd like to have maybe a little bit more. So maybe we put SRBs on and don't throttle this all the way up. And we might even want to throttle limit the SRBs or just not run the main engine while the SRBs are running. So if we were to do something like that, we would have radial decouplers like up here. And then we'd have some SRBs, maybe Polluxes, over here. And then this would move down like so. We'd want this to be a little lower, but that's okay. So it'd be something along the lines of this. Now that on its own would have the thrust to weight to lift us. We'd go ahead and toss in a... We'd go ahead and toss in nose cones on those. And it would be like that. We would need to have struts on this, obviously. I'm concerned about this bend point. So we would want to have the nose cones tied in up above the bend point. Something like this. And then we'd also want to have some struts down here that probably connect in somewhere like this. Now, in terms of aerodynamics, this is probably not great. And indeed, let's look at the aerodynamic and center of mass. Yeah, I mean, that's going to need to be changed, obviously. The question is just tail fins going to be... 4 tail fins going to be good enough for this? I don't know. Quad tail fins would actually work in theory. Center of mass is... Well, the center of lift would be pretty low here. I don't know how well this would go up through the atmosphere is my major concern right now. And as far as thrust to weight goes, this is actually reasonably fine. Let's burn these simultaneously, but we wouldn't throttle this engine up to full. We would have these guys throttled to full, and then this one would be variable. Let's run a quick aerodynamics simulation. I'm a little bit concerned about these aerodynamics. Of course, it's not planned to come back, and we should name this. What do we want to name this? Perhaps the Ojibwe. Actually, no, I'm going to go with Brazil. Brazil was actually a bigger problem in Hearts of Iron. So we're going to go for the Brazil Space Station Core. Fantastic. We'll save that, and let's do a simulated launch here to see how the aerodynamics go. I'm kind of expecting that these aerodynamics are going to be bad. Let's see how it is, though. Okay, I'm going to just throttle it up to 1/3 and see how that feels. And let's go. A little slow off the pad, but not too shabby. So I would maybe throttle it up to 1/2, although this is actually reasonably fine. We're now moving at 100 meters per second. Let's go ahead and do an aerodynamic stress test. This is definitely suspicious. We are able to hold here, but it's very prone to tipping. I'm wondering what this is going to be like when those SRBs come off. Yeah, we're losing attitude here. This is not surprising to me. Okay, let's go ahead and revert that back to the vehicle assembly. And that was about what I expected aerodynamically. Now, the other thing that we could do is we could add in another tail fin there, like that. That's really awkward looking. And what would that do to our actual aerodynamics? It's not great. It is not great at all. The other things that we could do include upgrading from a tail fin to maybe something a little larger. Are canards larger? They're about the same, actually, in reality. With these winglets, we're looking for a pretty big control surface, right? That's what we're looking for here. And I'm not really sure that one exists that's really of the size that I'm looking for here. Relative wing area is 0.52 compared to the tail fin of 0.61. Okay. Yeah, I think the tail fin is probably going to be our best bet. Actually, the Delta Deluxe winglets are slightly better. Okay. So we can do something like this, and then maybe like a second pair of winglets up here. I have no idea why this decided to angle like that. Okay, there we go. A second pair of winglets, or a second quad of winglets, rather, like up here. Perhaps there. It's certainly awkward, but that's much better. Let's see how that feels going through the atmosphere. And we don't have our final crew on here, so once again, this is a simulated launch. We're testing aerodynamics, and I'm trying to hone in where we actually want our mainsail to be throttled to. For right now, I'm going to throttle it to 1/2. And let's see how that feels. Much better off the pad. That is much better off the pad. I was glad to see we didn't have a lot of bending previously. Okay, let's hop over into orbital mode. This is much less prone to tipping. This is feeling much, much better. Let's see if it's enough. Stress test. Go to prograde. Okay, so it failed the stress test. I'm not super shocked by this. What happens if we throttle up the mainsail to full? We're able to recover with the mainsail at full. And, okay, we're not able to stop. So we're going to have to be careful going up through the Atmo for sure. Let's go ahead and revert that and see what it is like if we don't run that stress test. Actually, I meant to revert that to launch. Let's see what that's like if we don't run the stress test, and we may want to toss a couple of control surfaces onto the outside of the SRBs. I'm not entirely sure. I think we can maintain control here if we're just a little more cautious with that turn. I mean, I threw caution to the wind there, and that was completely deliberate. I wanted to test it to the point of failure there. So that was fine. Let's see how this goes with a little bit more realistic of an approach here. Bring that down a little bit. It's definitely... Okay, we need more control, for sure. We definitely need more control. So let's revert that back, and let's attempt to have some of these guys out on the SRBs. And then the question, of course, becomes... what happens when the SRBs are detached? If we have something like this. And let's take a look at our aerodynamics compared to our center of mass. This should be a little bit more stable. And let's see. Hopefully, we're actually able to do this. I mean, this is a lot of mass, and the mass is in a weird location, right? So I'm not surprised that we're having some aerodynamic issues. This was completely expected, and this is once again a simulation at full thrust. We're pretty quick off the pad, and I suspect we're going to be moving through the atmosphere, through the upper atmosphere, pretty quick. Now, we could do this a little bit less efficiently in going basically straight up until we're much higher in orbit. But I want to see... we're currently drifting a bit. This is definitely going much better. It's wanting to tip a little here. I'm fighting it now, and I'm failing the fight. Okay. So this pretty much tells me what I needed to know, and that is, unless I want to have weight where I don't want to have any weight, this is about the best that we're going to get. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these off of here. We are going to run with these just in case, but we're going to probably take this up substantially higher than I normally do before we start doing a turn. It's not efficient, but we should have the Delta V to make it happen. And just because this is a kind of weird payload, right? This is a very tall rocket, and future modules are probably not going to be quite this tall, but I wanted to cram a lot of different things into this. It is, however, time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and next episode, we will send this guy up with some actual crew in it. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and I will see you all next time.